Hello and welcome to the newest episode of Hide the Zucchini. I'm your host, Dylan Lang. With me today is MJ Khan and the lovely Allison. How are you guys today?
We are most excellent. How are you?
Good. Let's talk zucchini. No, let's not. You'll know why I said that when we talk about this a little later. But this is actually Dylan Knows. It's my weekly video show, the greatest video show of all time. Sorry, Allison. It is. I'm sorry.
When you hit 100 episodes, then we'll have a conversation.
Oh, throwdown!
The flag has been thrown down.
Yeah, I'm so close. I got 17 left. So, but yes, Dylan Knows is my show. Basically, what it is every week I talk a different genre. First Sunday of the week is comics. I'm not going to tell you about the rest of it. I've been here for 83-ish episodes. If you haven't seen this show by now, you're missing out. You're missing out totally. But first, real quick, first off, let me introduce the gorgeous hunk of love, MJ Khan.
Oh.
MJ, tell me about. Just wait to hear what I talk about, Allison. MJ, tell the people out there a little bit about what you do, especially a certain book and maybe sequel. Hello, let's get some news on the sequel.
I have written my first book, which was a while ago. Earth's First. It's a new take on the superhero genre. I'm trying to change that up a little, make it a little more, bring it more into the adult genre, but not adult. But the sequel is finished. I actually went back and just did a couple of edits on it, and I'm about to send it off to the editor. I'm going to let it sit for a few days and then make one more pass at it before sending it off to the editor. So, yeah, it is. It's out there, and it's just about ready to go.
So we're looking. You were talking June. Are you still looking?
Yes, still looking at that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to depend on how long the editor takes with it, but typically, yeah, I should be able to hit June with that. So.
Fantastic. And now we have the even more breathtaking, stunning, lovely, beautiful, gorgeous, and I'll see how many of you guys get this joke. And in the words of the great film teacher Fleabur, a kind of kiss me deadly essence to her, Alison Berry.
Thank you. That was like the most shining introduction I think I've ever gotten.
Well, I have to tell you, Allison, I absolutely love what you guys do. For those who don't know, I'm going to let Allison explain. Allison, explain what you're a part of.
I am a co-host of a show called We Hangout, sponsored by Comicosity.com. Myself and two other women, Jessica and Karen, every week get online and we just talk about comics. A lot of times we interview comic creators, writers, artists, letterers, colorists. We're even going to have an editor on at some point, hopefully. Yeah, we've been doing that for over 2 years now. We really enjoy it. We also, independently of that, we'll do interviews at comic book conventions, and all of us have reviewed books pretty regularly, though I haven't lately because I'm kind of busy. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. We have a really good time with it.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, if anyone, you're missing out really. We joke, but Comicosity Hangout is one of the best video shows out there. It's absolutely great. It's on Mondays, usually 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Moms Read Comics YouTube channel. Moms Read Comics is the main host Jessica's sort of brand that she set up. And then on Tuesday mornings, Comicosity posts out the edited, final version. But totally worth it to watch live, considering some of the shenanigans we get up to. Like when Chip Zdarsky shows up wearing nothing but his underwear.
That was a classic episode. That was one of the ones that really got me into the show. It was maybe one of the first ones I ever saw. It was absolutely hilarious. And then Jimmy Palmiotti and
Amanda Connor.
And Amanda, yes, I love Amanda also. Them being on also is always a hoot for you guys. Also, I can tell that too. Allison, real quick. MJ and I have been doing this now for a while, so I know everything about MJ, so I'm not even going to ask him because I know all this stuff. But being one of our guests, I just want to hit a few little things, ask you a few questions, basically. I mean, first of all, how did you get into comics?
Geez, there's not really one answer. I grew up watching Batman the animated series, and then the Superman series and stuff. And so I remember one day being in like a Barnes and Noble and seeing a Batman trade, and just picking it up. And I must have been in maybe like a sophomore or a junior in high school, and I was like, oh look, I think it was Hush by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee, and I was like, oh, I know all these characters, and then I started just sort of looking for comics online and a little bit in stores and just binging on trades. And by the time I got out of college, the first thing I did when I got my first paycheck was open up my very first pull list. So I've been into Batman forever, but actually like reading comic books was something I didn't actually get into until I was maybe like 17 or 18.
It's interesting. I've had my problems with pull lists before. I've been a comic collector for decades. My dad got me into comics. He started collecting Spider-Man when he was younger, and when I was born, not born, but a couple years down the line, he would let me look at the comics and read them, and then eventually he gave them all to me, and that started my collection. So then I started buying everything that was Spider-Man related, and then gradually I spread out more and more as I saw, all right, Spider-Man crossover the Avengers or Spider-Man crossover the Fantastic Four, and then I spread out to them, and then when Crisis hit in the mid '80s, and John Byrne, who was one of my favorite guys, was taking over Superman. That's when I started doing DC comics, and I started reading them, and then it's spiraled from there. It's gone absolutely crazy that I've worked at the Diamond Warehouse. I used to have a Diamond Warehouse in Maryland, Baltimore. I worked there for a summer in between college. I worked at my local comic store for about a year, and I was actually a Diamond customer service rep for about 4 years and a brand manager for about 9 months. So I've seen all the different sides of comics. So it's funny you say that you opened your first pull list. I've had like 2 or 3, and I've always run out of money. So it'd be like I hadn't checked it in like 2 months, and then they just said, you know what, we're just going to throw them out the door. And I never went and closed out because I'm a dick. So.
See, I think I might be a store killer because my first store was a satellite of a larger chain that was based out of D.C. And so my first store was in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and then they closed down. And so then I went to a different store that was a satellite of a larger one in D.C., and they closed down. And then I went to another store in Springfield, Virginia, and then the owner died. And I was like, am I... Like, do I have some bad juju following me around? Like, what's going on?
You're the Ted McGinley of comic stores.
I've been very happily with Victory Comics in Falls Church for quite some time now. So, and they're still going strong.
And just real quick,
you never gave up.
Exactly, never give up. And also, MJ, why don't you explain real quick, how you got into comics too?
I got into the comics with the X-Men. I think, like a lot of people, that was the first time that I remember really, really just being struck by, at the time, all the diversity on the team. I mean, they were speaking different languages. They had all these fantastic powers, and that was back in the day of, Dark Phoenix, and all that. So I really just got hooked on it, and I started reading anything X-Men that I could find, and then from there I just kind of branched out. I never did the pull list. I always liked to wander around in a comic shop, so I'd go there on New Comic Day and just kind of like wander around, taking what I want. As long as I got my X-Men first, then I was happy with everything else. But yeah.
That's what I do now. I go to my comic store up here all the time, Cards, Comics, and Collectibles, but I don't have a pull list because there will be times where the mortgage has socked all our money out, and my wife, who makes more money than I do, doesn't get paid for like 2 weeks, so I sort of don't go for a couple weeks, and then we have like issues where we might have some financial things, so I might not get comics for like 6 months, and then eventually we get ourselves righted again, so then I go back in and I can just go back and take what I want. So I'm always afraid that I'm going to go to the store and have a pull list, and then something's going to happen where I'm going to get kicked out again like I was the last couple times. So they're trying to get me a couple times. It's like, you know what, I just don't want to do it. But they're really cool because they actually give 20% off to their regular customers. They give me 10%. Just because I'm a regular, so that's kind of cool. Now, Allison, how did you get involved in the Comicosity Hangout?
Jessica sent me a random Twitter message, the same as she did with Karen, being like, hey, do you guys want to maybe talk about comics on like a Google Hangout for like half an hour on Monday night? And we're like, yeah, sure, that sounds good. And so we get on and we have our little agendas and we talk and it was a little stilted and awkward and she was like, and we knew she was recording it. We did not know it was broadcasting live. So she was like, just so you know, that broadcast, and we actually had viewers, and I think it went really well. And we were like, what? But we had fun, and so when she asked, do you want to do this again? We're like, yeah, sure. And so it turned into a regular thing, and then it kept getting bigger and bigger, and I mean, I never expected it to like turn into what it's become, but
wow.
Yeah, and then it was after that like the Comicosity editorial team like reached out and they were like, hey, if you want to actually do reviews and stuff, because I have a side blog, like a Tumblr where I sometimes write about comics, and so they had read some of my work there, so they were like, if you want to write, Jessica writes, you're welcome, and give you access to the free comics drive, and it was like, hey.
They had you at free comics.
Yes.
That was one of the greatest things about working at Diamond was we always got a lot of comics about a week ahead of time because it was our job to try to sell them to our customers. Say, hey, look, we saw, Spider-Man #1, whatever, and it looks gorgeous, or there's a major twist at the end. You might want to up your orders a little bit, and so that was done in a business way. It was really cool though, and so I appreciate it. I mean, I always will have a soft spot for Diamond, but it was just every Wednesday was probably one of the most stressful days of my entire life because it's New Comic Book Day, and at the time there was, I guess there's still a lot of good stores out there, but there are a lot of stores that were competing against each other, and people would, and this is their livelihood, so people would absolutely freak out, as they should, when their stuff wasn't there, like if it was damaged or UPS delivered late or they didn't get all the stuff they wanted, they would absolutely freak out on us. I understand because, you hope that there are going to be people who are, this is my store, I'll wait till they get the next issue in, whatever, but we all know that a lot of comic readers are like, I need to get this issue to find out what's going on. So there's a store a little bit further down the road. I'm going to go to that store instead and get it because my store doesn't have it. And that kind of stinks, but yeah, so that was always, a rough time. That was always, Wednesday was just the absolute worst day ever. So, absolutely crazy. And then a couple more questions for you, Alison, and we'll get into the meat of this because you're a very interesting person. I want to know about you. And as I said, I already know about MJ, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Some of your favorite characters, Alison, out in comics. Doesn't necessarily have to be any of your favorite, absolute favorites.
Well, I've Batman was my first love. I love Wonder Woman. I love Batwoman. I actually have a Batwoman tattoo across my back between my shoulders. Captain Marvel is who I only started reading Marvel relatively recently, and this was pretty much the biggest reason why. I also love Spider-Woman. Gosh, what else? I'm looking around like my room for all the stuff I've got hanging up. That's just like within superheroes, I have a ton. Like I love the Next Wave team, so like Elsa Bloodstone is a character I absolutely adore, and I have like my trash bag villains that I love, like Ra's al Ghul, the worst Batman villain ever. See, I'm just pulling these off my bedside table. Like this is it might be a little sad, but also I make no apologies about who I am or what I am.
I have a display case of action figures. Well, I don't have them in there yet, but I have a display case that I'm going to put all my action figures in.
I am looking for a good display case because, like, I have pets and statues and figures are always mixed. So, But yeah, so for superheroes, I guess there's a ton. Like, I could probably list 100. For the non-superhero stuff, I mean, within Preacher, the Saint of Killers is probably one of my favorites. And I love Spider Jerusalem from Transmetropolitan. They're not half as much as I love his filthy assistants. Prince Robot from Saga. Death from East of West. I don't know. Pick a comic and I've got, like, everyone has a favorite in every book I read. Every book they read, I think. So.
Wow.
It's actually interesting you mentioned East of West. I've actually never read East of West before, but
God.
the library that is right up the street from me, they have like a complete collection of every one of the trades. So I'm like, I'm gonna go get them. I'm gonna read them because I leafed through them one day. It's gorgeous, absolutely looks gorgeous. So I can't wait to read that. So that's on my agenda as well, to read that. And one last thing for you, Allison, and then we'll start getting to the meat of stuff, and we'll hear from MJ, who's just sort of been chilling. If you could choose any guest ever to come on your show, who would you like? I mean, who would be the guest you would love to have on Comicosity Hangout?
Kieran Gillen. If only because, I mean, we've been very fortunate and have pretty much landed most of our dream guests, but we have a harder time with the people who are across the ocean because of the time zone difference, and since we broadcast at night. One time Declan Shelby, the Irish artist, came on, and he was like, no, it's okay to do it live because I stay up on it anyway. So he came on at like 2:30 in the morning his time.
Wow.
And just broadcast for an hour, like in the middle of the damn night. And we were like, you don't have to do this. We can do this on a Sunday. Like, it's okay. But, so no, I'd love to have Kieran Gillen on. Huge fan of a lot of his work. So, and if we're talking like any guest ever of all time,
absolutely,
like,
why not?
I would want to talk to, I would say like Jack Kirby and Denny O'Neil.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, Denny would be a good one, yeah. Jack would be too, absolutely. He would be. He'd be a pisser, probably.
Yeah.
It'd be great to see him talk and stuff like that. Speaking of Kieran, I'm sure you might have picked this up. Did you pick this up, Allison, Free Comic Book Day? Mercury Heat?
I did not go to Free Comic Book Day because I am very, very sick.
Oh, that's right. Oh, okay.
So I think they put a bunch of books in my bag for me. So hopefully there'll be a bunch of stuff for me.
It actually looks
on Wednesday.
It looks kind of up your alley. I think you might like it, actually. I mean, it's from Avatar, so we'll see. But yeah, it was great. It was actually interesting. My Free Comic Book Day, real quick. Two of my former coworkers at Diamond were helping out, hand out the books yesterday. So it was funny. It was absolutely insane in my store, which I love to see. I'm so glad to see that it was doing as well as it was. It always does well, so I was so happy to see that. But it was just so funny seeing two guys I used to work with handing out the comics. Like, hey man, what's up? Can I have that one? Sure, here you go. So that was our Get to Know Alison Berry segment, and I hope you all enjoyed it because she is a awesome lady. MJ, you're okay. Me,
yeah,
I put myself around beautiful people like you guys. I'm fairly average, so.
Yeah, we get by.
He's a man after my own heart with the Flash T-shirt.
Hey, I do love the Flash. You know, I have a Star Labs one too. You know, I had to get it after the Flash TV show. As soon as I saw one, I'm like, oh, I need a Star Labs shirt. So that as well.
I actually wore. I don't know if you guys remember Planet Krypton from Kingdom Come.
Yes.
I have a Planet Krypton Central City shirt, and I wore that yesterday for Free Comic Book Day. It was kind of funny. So
I have like a Central City Running Club T-shirt, like it's for a fictional running club. Like I wear it when I go to the gym, which I think is fun. Like
that's pretty cool.
Actually, there was a sweatshirt I almost got from Diamond when I still worked there. I had a nice discount when I worked there, and it was Gotham School of Criminology or something like that, and that was kind of cool to have. I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. I mean, it looked like a professional, university sweatshirt, hood and everything. It was fantastic.
That's pretty cool.
All right, so let's get into the meat of this day. All right, alrighty.
Jump
right in. As we all know, Friday was the debut of Avengers: Age of Ultron. All three of us have seen it, and we're going to spoil it for everybody. I'm just kidding. We're going to be talking about it, and we will be mentioning spoilers. But I just want to give you a full warning: spoilers ahead, and I will talk spoilers. We're going to talk spoilers. If you don't want to hear the spoilers, then you might want to fast forward through this if you're not watching live. So. Start now. All right, we're done talking spoilers. Anyway, the first thing I noticed was this is actually unofficial right now because it's weird. The way the box office counts work is they predict what's going to happen on Sunday before
Right.
the gate comes in. And right now they've got Avengers only making 187.7, which is still impressive, but nowhere near as much as they thought it was going to make. They thought it was going to surpass its 209 that it did when the original came out. So I don't know if their numbers still might be off, and they might they'll get fixed again on Monday when the actual gate comes in, so they'll find out how much they're actually off. But that's kind of a telling sign a little bit that maybe we're starting to suffer a little bit of superhero fatigue. I don't think we are, because everywhere I went, that's all people were talking about, seeing Avengers. Now, let me run it past you guys. Just right now, we'll do your initial thoughts on it, and then we can get into the nitty-gritty about it. MJ, what was your original thoughts about this movie? Just real quick, brief hits.
I loved it. I thought it was really, really good. The tone was completely different from the first one. It was darker, I think, a little darker, but I loved it. And, as far as the box office take goes, I saw it on Friday night, and I picked up my tickets maybe 2.5 months ago. And so when I got to the theater at 7 o'clock, every showing was sold out. They had signs up everywhere. Every showing was sold out. I think the same thing for most of the day on Saturday. I mean, who knows? Maybe the fight Saturday night could have taken a little bit of attention away from it. People had their plans. They stayed in. But I think for the most part, everybody who saw it really liked it. I don't think it got the reviews that the first one got. But, again, that was different. That was like the first ensemble movie, getting everybody together. I really liked it.
Alison, your take on it real quick?
Trying to be diplomatic about this. I didn't love it. If Avengers was an A+, which it was, this was like a C. And I've been hearing things about Joss Whedon having kind of a burnout last year, and I think maybe that might show. I think honestly, to the box office take, it opened everywhere else on the planet before it opened here, and honestly, the buzz around it was not as insane as the buzz around the first one. And you're right, MJ, that I think there was some of that, it's the first. It was the first of its kind, and that contributed to it. But it was also critically, people were the story is great. This movie is a solid movie. This movie, it almost felt like a step backwards to me, because it seemed like none of the characters seemed to reflect any of their Phase 2 stories. It kind of felt at times, I was like, did they see Winter Soldier or Iron Man 3? Did they see that before they did this?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the characterization felt especially with Captain America and with Natasha, and with Tony, I was like, this doesn't seem right. The characters that felt like they'd had the most even transition were the ones who have only been in Avengers, or who were brand new. So I wasn't. The movie at points felt very herky-jerky to me. I've heard though that there's rumors of some director's cut that's an hour longer. So it's oh wow, if you cut an hour out of an already super long movie,
right?
Whoa, what was that final product supposed to look like? So yeah, I mean, there was plenty of love about it. It's an enjoyable movie, but it's not when I walked out of Winter Soldier, which is so far my favorite of all of the MCU so far, because it's a perfect piece of filmmaking, superheroes or not. When I walked out of that movie, I was like, can I buy a ticket for the next show? I want to turn right back around and go in and watch it again right now. And I did see that movie 4 times in theaters. I don't know that I would necessarily see Age of Ultron again until it comes out later on DVD or something, or comes to the Draft House. I don't know. So I wasn't as hugely enamored.
No, it's actually interesting. I'm sort of in between both of you. I found it more of a B to me, actually, and I don't know if that had to do with maybe I wasn't feeling 100%, but it seemed a little off to me in some aspects of it. I mean, yeah, and here's the thing. Here's my issue that I have with a lot of stuff is Avengers is a great film. I love Avengers, but at the same time, I have to consider the situation I saw Avengers under. I did when Avengers was coming out, they did the first one where they showed all the Phase 1 movies before Avengers, and I did one of those shows. So I got there 11 a.m. on that Thursday, and just sat and watched. Iron Man, Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, and then they opened up the Avengers, 12 o'clock. So I was already in a giddy state of mind, and then that movie would just blew my freaking mind away. And then, as MJ knows, we loved, absolutely adored Winter Soldier. I agree with you, Allison. It's if not, it's tied up there with Avengers as the best one they've ever done. And that actually makes me feel really good because the Russos are doing Civil War, and they're going to be doing Avengers 3 and 4. So it makes me really, and they're using pretty much the same writing staff. So I think that's going to show that I think we've got a potential awesome films coming out. I think Civil War is going to be amazing. I just hope that all the people that they're throwing in there aren't going to cause it to be too much of a mess. But I don't think it is because Civil War is such a deep story. Still not one of my favorites from Marvel, but
it seems like they're not necessarily going to follow the comic to the letter, though, because that all hinged on secret identities, and none of these people have secret identities. So, you know.
No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. So yeah, I agree with both of you. I liked it. And I agree with you, Allison. It might not be one that, okay, I want to go right back out and see again. In fact, I was thinking, okay, maybe my wife might want to go see it with me in the movie theater, but she saw Avengers. She didn't see Avengers in the theater with me. We watched on DVD. I think we might do that with Avengers: Age of Ultron. So, you know, there's that. So we'll see about that. So
I think that I think that if it had been Avengers and then this, without Captain America, without Winter Soldier in between, or Iron Man, it would have been seen differently. Because it's almost like, I agree with Allison that, Captain America, it seemed like he was a completely different person in this than he was at the end of Winter Soldier. Certainly, Tony Stark was. So I think if you had not seen those and just went from Avengers to this, it would have had a different feel to it.
Yeah. And I think Joss has kind of, Captain America is the character that, I think Joss Whedon has even admitted he struggles with, because he's his least favorite character, so he just, as if he's getting into his head, but yeah, no, it's, it was a little disappointing. I wanted to see maybe some of the resonance of it, because Phase 2 was a really emotional phase of movies. There were a lot of feelings happening in Iron Man 3 and in Winter Soldier, and even to an extent in Thor 2. I almost felt like that was why Guardians of the Galaxy was put in Phase 2. It's we've been bumming you out. Here's something happening.
Make you happy and cheery. Yeah.
Feel good.
And I will admit that parts of Age of Ultron did feel forced. I didn't understand the whole Beauty and the Beast thing going on with Natasha and Banner. That, to me, was why is that being forced in there?
I could see it, but it was the way Natasha was acting that I was wait, since when is Natasha I want a boyfriend and babies? I'm that's not...
Yeah,
not
unless you're
Natasha.
trying to get something out of them, but to seriously mean that's just not her. So
it seemed like a huge leap, I think, from where we were at Avengers. I mean, because we haven't seen we saw Natasha in Winter Soldier, and she didn't seem at all like that. So I think, what you just said, if you went straight from Avengers to this, maybe it would make more sense. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. We can't unring the bell on that because we can't unsee those movies.
No, and I don't want to unsee those other ones.
I want to go watch Winter Soldier right now.
You know what? I was just thinking the same thing. I'm man, it's been a couple of weeks since I've seen it. I need to see it again.
Exactly. And here's the thing, and we'll do this a little bit different. Let's just start picking things out and looking at it. Let's talk about Natasha. My favorite part with Natasha, and this, to me, not only is the character worthy, because I think Scarlett Johansson does a fantastic job, and the character is so fantastic, this segment cemented in my head that we need a Black Widow movie now, immediately, right this instant, okay? Screw all these other ones. Screw this new Spider-Man, okay? Let's bring Spider-Man along shortly. Let's put Spider-Man in some of the other movies, and then let's give him his own movie in 2020, okay? Let him grow up a little bit, But when she was going through Scarlet Witch's hex, and she was going and reliving the horrible past that she lived at, and I absolutely loved seeing that background of Natasha, and I wish we would have seen a little bit more of that. I think if we would have seen a little bit more of that, maybe we'd be able to understand some of the stuff that she was going through, because she was awesome in Winter Soldier. I thought she was fantastic in Winter Soldier. She had her moments in Avengers, obviously, but in this one, she had a few good moments, but gradually her main focus in this one was Bruce and her, and that is not deserving of the character, as you said, Allison. That's not, and you too, MJ. It's not Natasha, but just that little segment where we learn, about, she's the ballet, and then. And I love this also, Allison. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the Before trilogy, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, Before Midnight. Julie Delpy's in those, and she was playing the bitch who was like her teacher, was like getting her involved in the program. And I just love seeing, after knowing her from these romantic films, seeing her as this total bitch, forcing her to do things to become a spy is fantastic.
Did you guys watch Agent Carter, the TV show?
Yes.
MJ did. I missed out on it, but I'm going to definitely. I want to watch it because I love Julie Atwell. I absolutely love her. I just didn't. The timing wasn't right for me. But go on.
So they deal with the Red Room, which is what that was all a reference to. Is the Red Room is these Russian assassins, and they're girls, and they're trained up from little children, like they're little kids, and they are raised in basically assassin camp. And so that was what that whole deal was. Like, that woman was basically her mentor, her instructor, who basically the matron of the school or whoever. And that's like 1,000% what I want in a Black Widow movie, is like some kind of like flashbacks to the Red Room, maybe like former assassin classmates that have to show up, and she has to deal with them. Like, you make it like a Cold War spy movie, basically.
Yeah.
Like that would be so amazing.
Like maybe one of the Red Room assassins is going rogue and is assassinating all the other assassins and going after them, and they've got to try to figure out a way to stop her, something like that. And it's
and like even though Widow's out of the game, like they're still targeting her. It would be amazing. Yeah. And I totally like Scarlett Johansson's an Oscar winner. Like, she could obviously carry a movie by herself. So
definitely, yeah.
And there have also been a ton of these, fake trailers where people have taken stuff from her other movies as well as Avengers and have made trailers for a Black Widow film. It's just like, I want to see that movie.
Spider-Man's had 5 movies. It's time for Black Widow to have, like, new Arachnid, please.
Yes, new Arachnid, right.
The only thing I really want to see more out of Black Widow is I want to see more of the Sting. She had her new suit where she had the electrical currents going through it. But
a little bit.
Did I miss it, or I know she used them a few times? I mean,
she had sticks. They were almost like Nightwing's sticks, like or Daredevil's sticks. Only the sticks were what was stinging. She wasn't using like
the wristband,
the wrist gauntlet thing. Like,
I'd like to see more of that anyway, and I think and you know what, it kind of stinks that Scarlett Johansson is such a big actress, but wouldn't it be awesome to see her in Daredevil? It
would be amazing to see her in Daredevil.
Yeah.
And I feel like you can't necessarily assume nothing because, Samuel L. Jackson's a big actor and he's cameoed in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Vincent D'Onofrio is kind of a big actor and he's one of the stars of Daredevil. So
good point, actually. That is a good point. All right, let's go on to let's go on to some of the new characters. What's your guys' take on Scarlet Witch?
I don't know anything about her from the comics. I know a little bit about her. Like, I know she's got a thing for robots. I know she's Magneto's daughter. I know that she's a twin. I don't really know a lot about her power set. I actually liked how they did it in the movie, considering like how they had to kind of jettison her mutant origins completely. I thought Elizabeth Olsen looked so cool, especially at the end. Like, I want that cool red jacket. Like,
I think she did she looked great in the part, but I don't know. I just, changing her origin, she's not a mutant anymore, and I'm so used to associating her with that and her mutant ability. I couldn't quite figure out what she was doing. They didn't really get into the magic aspect of her. They made her seem more like a watered-down version of Jean Grey almost.
Well, they never even said anything like Scarlet Witch, and they never really described the only explanation given is like metahuman experiments. Like, they've been experimenting with people, and that's it.
They didn't really tell you what her abilities were. I mean, granted, yes, she could get inside your head, but the Scarlet Witch does so much more than that. But that was the only thing I was watching that. I'm like, she was too Jean Grey-like for me.
I wish it had been, instead of all the focus on the Bruce Natasha romance, it would have been better, I think, if we'd gotten to know
the twins,
her and her brother, the twins, a little bit better.
Yeah.
Especially considering, spoiler alert, what happens to Pietro later on.
Yeah.
Why do you introduce someone new and then
because I guess they're feeling they had to. They're like, okay, eeny meeny, you're the most expendable. You got to go.
Yeah, because we're not going to kill any of the big guys. We're not going to kill Hawkeye off because he's already been announced that he's going to be in Civil War, and he's and that was probably the most obvious one to go after because he got so much more to do, and that's one of the jokes we make when we watch Walking Dead is when one of the minor characters that isn't Rick or any of those starts having a big episode or whatever, they're going to die.
How you know? That is exactly like when Merle had his episode at the end of the season. I was like, bastards.
So
like, there's no way he has this much dialogue and he gets to see the next episode. Right. No way.
Doesn't happen.
But I guess maybe it's a little bit of a problem with they're afraid that the viewing public are idiots and they're not going to realize there's a Quicksilver in the X-Men world and now there's a Quicksilver in the Avengers world and they're not the same actor and they don't have the same power set, they don't do the same things.
I wondered if it was like a studio conflict and maybe that was like an arrangement they made and it was like, okay, you can have him for this film and you can never call him Quicksilver and then you have to kill him. Because Scarlet Witch wasn't in the X-Men movie. So maybe it's the kids got separated, Fox gets Pietro and Marvel gets Wanda, and that's...
Maybe they decided to settle it by whichever director shot the coolest scene with Quicksilver gets to keep him.
I liked how they did the speedster effects. It's so hard to I feel like it's so hard to make speedsters look good on film, and I think The Flash has been doing a good job of it on TV, and lukewarm on the Days of Future Past, but I liked how they did it in Age of Ultron. It was neat.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. Did you ever see the original Flash from the 1990s, Allison?
Sadly, yes.
That speed thing was really crazy.
Yes.
I mean, for the time frame, it was cutting edge, but that was just wow. But yeah, this you got the slow down. I love the slow down effect when Pietro's running and everything's real slow and he's batting stuff around and he's everyone's moving real slow and then just that scene where he's running right at Captain America. Captain America's sitting there in slow motion. He just goes. Bap! Smacks him in the face. It was that was amazing. Now
or when he was running by and Thor's hammer flew past him, he's like, "Oh, what's that?" And he grabbed it. And it took off with him.
That was actually interesting too. But I don't think they've made a trade of this yet. But Allison and maybe you too. I'm down if you've read this either. But one of the best Scarlet Witch stories ever was a 12-issue miniseries, came out I think in the late 80s, called Vision and Scarlet Witch. It was a 12-issue miniseries. It was written by Steve Englehart with art by Richard Howell, and it basically followed the two of them because if you didn't know, Scarlet Witch and Vision end up getting married eventually, and through her magic, she's able to create twins. And this 12-issue miniseries is having them getting prepped for being parents while going through what new parents go through, the stuff where, okay, we're everything's great and glorious, we're happily married, everything's great, uh-oh, I'm pregnant, oh, great, it's exciting news, and then as things get dragged on, their life starts getting in there, things start getting a little worrisome, and then there's a little bit of tension between the couples, and then eventually, the big happy event happens and everybody's happy again. But it was a absolutely brilliant story. I don't know if they have, but it's an absolute great series, and it got me really excited for what could come when they introduced Vision, Paul Bettany as Vision, and the sequence at the end where he grabs Wanda and is taking her out of danger's way, and they did like that little look
zoom in and there's like this look, and I'm like, she gonna get that robot. She gonna get it.
Absolutely, and that got me excited. And then the fact that they're now both in the new incarnation of the Avengers, which I absolutely love this new version of the Avengers. I think it's you get rid of the some of the more popular ones, yeah, but you get to focus on some of these lesser characters who are just as interesting. War Machine, Falcon, Scarlet Witch. You're going to learn a bit more about Vision, and then you got Natasha and Steve there, which is great as the leaders, and I think that's actually a brilliant idea. So I'm very excited for what's to come with this incarnation of the Avengers, and I hope we see a little bit more of them than I think.
Did it feel to you a little bit like the whole movie was kind of just building to that final scene. Like, it was a little bit of a placeholder of a movie. Like, it was literally like, this movie happened so we could get this person over here and this person over here and kind of set up the board a little bit for, Infinity War and for Civil War.
I agree with that, and I also agree with what Thor was going through also, is setting up Thor Ragnarok also,
Right.
which I think they know, because Kevin Feige is like that. He knows what's going on in at least the next 6 or 7 films, so he knows we've got to reach to this point. So we have to make, because right now the team wasn't really aware of the Infinity Gems. They had slight knowledge of it, but they really didn't know anything about it. Then when Thor has his vision, and then you start seeing, when he goes into those waters and he starts seeing the actual Infinity Gems and the gauntlet and all the stuff that's going on, he's like, uh-oh, storm's coming. And that's when he says, okay, we gotta bring Vision to life, because we gotta keep this gem, safe. And he's the best person I can think of right now that's going to be there. So that's good. Yeah, Allison will be right back. She's, I guess, she is still recovering from her illness, so she shall be back. Yeah, with what she said, MJ, I mean, do you agree with that? Do you think that that's...
It felt like, to me at least, the last part of the movie where they started to set those up and, as she said, move the players into place, they had to rush it to get that done. So maybe that movie was meant to be a lot longer, but it was already a long movie. But they did feel like they had to rush it quite a bit, to get Thor out of the scene. Iron Man is now off again, which at the end he kind of felt more like he did at the end of Iron Man 3, like he was questioning something, which could, of course, lead to Civil War. I just still feel that Captain America was just not in the right place in that movie. I don't know what they should have done with him, but I just feel like he was not where he should have been after Winter Soldier. So that's the only thing that I feel like they missed, moving him into wherever he needs to be for Civil War. Now, unless they're looking at it as he's going to take over the mantle of leadership, and that's going to help create the crisis, for him. But I just feel like, they did a good job putting Tony Stark where he needs to be. They sent Thor off, but I just think that Captain America just didn't feel like he was in the right place to me.
Joss can't write Captain America. It's okay.
Oh, maybe that's just it. I mean, because, I don't know, he's kind of there, but,
He makes him kind of humorless, and, like, the whole language thing, which was, I guess, like, a cute joke, but...
Yeah, but they did, like, one time too many.
He was a World War II soldier. It's like, he has language issues. Like, I feel like it's certain language with him. Like, he probably wouldn't like a lot of, like, gender-specific insults and F-bombs and things like that. Like, that would hit the...
But yeah, shit being the first line in the whole movie. Yeah, that I'm sure he's probably said that a bunch of times. He's not the.
He said it in his own movies.
and I know, and here's the thing else. He's very awkward, because that's how it's just how he is. And at the end, I knew they were trying to show that. Tony and him have sort of mended their bridges a little bit, when the whole discussion about, well, if you put Thor's hammer in an elevator, it goes up and down, he's still going up, right? It was kind of a throw-off joke. Yeah, he has humor, but he's also still kind of square, too. I mean, yeah, he's getting better and stuff like that, but
he's better at making fun of himself, though. Like, all through Winter Soldier, he makes kind of little sort of jokes at his own expense. The Tony and him mending thing, that actually, I was like, I kind of wanted them to still be, like, standoffish at the end, because Tony never actually had to answer for twice creating artificial intelligence without telling the team. Yeah. And, pretty much destroying a country and all this other stuff. And I thought it would maybe set up more of what I'm expecting from Civil War, but maybe Civil War will not turn on a Tony versus Steve thing. I want it to, because I find it fascinating, and I think that the chemistry that Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans have in those roles is really good, but I don't know, it felt a little bit too neat.
Yeah. I just don't understand how Tony was able to convince Banner to once again help him create another artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that seemed like a leap.
The first time I'm like, okay, they saw what just literally sprang out of that, and you just murdered Jarvis and ripped him apart. Let's try it again, but this time,
No, this time it'll work.
Yes, this time it will work.
Well, okay,
No.
but if it doesn't this time, I'm going to be really mad, and I'm going to rip your head off.
But I still get one more strike. 3 strikes before I'm out. So.
I think I saw on Tumblr somewhere, someone was like, the summary of the movie is everyone, Tony, no. Banner, Tony, maybe? Tony, yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great summation.
The one thing I did like about the movie, I mean, I liked a lot about the movie, but the one thing I liked about it is the quiet moments, because those are always fun to give a little chance between all the, because I mean, you get thrown right into the action. The very first scene of the movie is them attacking Baron Strucker's hideout with the twins and stuff like that. And then you get your little break with, you get the story moving on a little bit, and then you get the break where they have the party. The party was a lot of fun. You see what I'm assuming right now is probably going to be Amadeus Cho's mother, if not already his mother. I mean, he's already around, and I don't know if they're going to bring him in some form or another eventually. It would be interesting to see what if they got a plan for him coming up, but I don't know. I mean, it might just been a simple Easter egg. Oh, here's a woman whose last name is Cho. There's a character named Amadeus Cho in the Marvel Universe. Maybe it's his mom, you know? But then the whole thing about Thor's hammer. Now, what made me scratch my head a little bit is, shouldn't Captain America been able to lift that? Unless the killing he did in the name of the war in the country and protecting the country, maybe that is what
Thor's
caused
killed
him not to be
people in the name of protecting Asgard, so...
I'm sure he's killed far more people. People, frost giants, you name it. He's like slaughtered bunches of them.
Canonically, within Marvel, I know other people have wielded the hammer, but I don't know that Cap has necessarily been one of them. And I don't know what the explanation for that necessarily is. Granted, there's a lot of changing mythology around the hammer right now, but within the movie universe, I liked that when Cap went to lift the hammer, it moved.
Yeah, and Thor's face is like, Thor's like, Mjolnir, you fickle bastard! Like, don't you dare! And then Steve struggles a little bit, and then he's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Mjolnir wants to only just stay with me. Like,
it's all good again.
And I thought it was great that Vision was able to wield it. I thought that was hilarious, and the whole response from Thor on that was like, "Oh, okay, this is kind of good." And then Steve and Tony were like, "Oh, well, he's not really human, so it doesn't really count." So.
Well, if the elevator lifts, is it not worthy?
So let me see. Is there anything else we need to hit about this? We just basically, everyone's going to go see it. You don't want to go down.
It's important to see it.
Yeah.
If you're going to see all these movies, you have to see it.
Yeah, it's going to set up a lot. Well, what did you guys think of the Vision?
I thought he looked really cool. I'm surprised how they pulled that off.
Yes.
And I thought Paul Bettany was really good in it. I wish he had joined the movie earlier, actually, because he was one of my favorite parts.
He was, yeah, mine too. I thought he did a really, really good job.
A lot of people were equating it to how the Hulk was in the first Avengers, because in the first Avengers the Hulk was amazing, and then with the second one, Vision took sort of that role over. I agree with you guys. I thought he was fantastic. I think Paul Bettany did a fantastic job, and I'm really excited to see. And I love that last scene between him and Ultron, where he ends up vaporizing Ultron, or did he really? That's the kind of thing you got to think about.
Right, yeah.
Because he does have that. And he had that conversation after he was created. I'm not exactly sure where I am. Am I good? Am I bad? I'm in between, but I'll do what I need to do. So I'm excited about that. I wish we would have seen more of the Falcon. I wish he would have joined them in the final battle, like War Machine did. I think that would have been an interesting way to get him in there, because I thought he was fantastic in Winter Soldier, and I think it would have been great to see him a little bit more than just in the party, and then at the very end when he comes in as being a member of the New Avengers. So I'd like to see that a little bit more. Did you agree, guys?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I loved his character. It's part of what made Winter Soldier. So,
Mm-hmm. I was surprised. It was nice to see Peggy Carter. It was nice to see Heimdall. I'm glad they got War Machine and Falcon involved, but on both counts, I would have liked both of them more involved.
Right.
Because I mean, that's what the Avengers is. It's you know.
I wish that Jane and Pepper had been there because it's like we got all the dude sidekicks in. I'm like, well, where are all of the awesome chicks? Like, please bring them in.
It's almost like they made it a point to say why they weren't there, because they had to make it a point why. So.
No, I thought that was a great little back and forth between Thor and
about but Jane is better.
Yeah.
And then just real quick, I mean, we basically touched on it a little bit. I think Bruce took a step back. I like Mark Ruffalo. I thought he was. I think he did a great job in the Avengers. Edward Norton was okay, Incredible Hulk, but I didn't see him as the Hulk that much. I see Ruffalo a bit more as a good Hulk, Banner-esque thing. And he, as I said, he really didn't do much. I mean, he had the Natasha and Bruce thing going on, and then he had his I'm dangerous, I need to leave, and his whole I'm gonna leave you guys in the middle of your biggest time of need, which I thought was not what he would do. I think he would be.
Basically, it puts him exactly where he was at the beginning of Avengers, like hiding himself from the world,
away from everything. Right.
Like.
And I was thinking about this. What I would love to see is I don't know if any of you caught any of Peter David's run on the Hulk, but he turned him super intelligent. He made him have Bruce's brain and the Hulk's body. And I would kind of like to see something like that come up eventually. I think we kind of need to see this giant 8-foot, 7-foot, 8-foot monster talking like Bruce Banner and doing scientific things as well, and seeing how like a Tony or maybe down the line a Peter Parker or an Amadeus Cho would react to him. There's the Hulk, and he's talking like a scientist. I understand what he's saying, but here's this giant green monster talking about science. I think it'd be kind of cool to see that.
I did like the confrontation between he and Iron Man, the Hulkbuster armor. That was pretty cool. That was funny. With the jackhammer fist, he's like, "Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep." I like that.
And then the one person we have neglected, which we really shouldn't have, is Hawkeye. He got a heck of a, I think we can all agree he sort of got the shaft in the first one, because he was possessed half the time, and then at the end he had some good moments, but he didn't have all that thing. Allison is rolling her eyes a little bit. All right, Allison, tell us what you think about Hawkeye.
I did not like what they did with him in this movie. I wanted Hawkeye to have a bigger role, but I thought the whole, again, spoilers, if you're here at this point, then you've basically seen the movie now, because we just talked about it for you. But I didn't like the whole family man thing. I thought that was kind of dumb. I mean, I like Linda Cardinelli and everything. Freaks and Geeks was awesome, but, part of me, this is because I'm very attached to the Matt Fraction, David Aja Hawkeye, and that just destroyed my hopes for us ever getting like a Hawkeye series like on Netflix or something, because they're not going with that Hawkeye. Also, I've got like the sneaking suspicion that his family was just introduced to be murdered later, so like I don't know. It felt weird. It felt like they had to make it up to Jeremy Renner for shafting him in the first movie, and thus we had to give him a bunch of stuff to do, and so let's give him a farm and a family. Farm, yes. Family, that was a bit much. I don't know. It would have been fun if it was like like maybe he lived on the farm with his brother. Like, it would have been cool to have like an MCU Barney Barton. That would have made me so excited. Or Kate Bishop is one of my absolute favorite characters. Like, I accidentally dress as Kate Bishop at least once a week, and like I've got a kinship with her. And so it would have been really great if he'd like that phone call that we get the end of. I'm like, is he talking to Kate? He's talking to Kate.
Yeah, I mean, and you can make it so, if a lot of people think that might be kind of creepy, you can make it like she could be related to him in some form or another. It doesn't have to be the way she is in the Fraction comic, which is absolutely brilliant. If you haven't read it, you got to read Fraction's version of it. I'm just going to take a little side view on this. Allison, what do you think of what is it, Jeff Lemire's
the Lemire version?
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it so far. I mean, he's only got like 2, maybe 3 issues out, but I feel like enough people have latched on to the Fraction Hawkeye that the other writers and like enough Marvel writers and artists have become attached to it that they're carrying it over. Like I don't know if you read Hawkeye versus Deadpool by Jerry Dugan and Matteo Lally. Absolutely brilliant, so funny, and it carries through a lot of the Clint and Kate stuff from the Fraction comic, like Clint's deafness, Kate's personality, like it carries a lot of that through. And so I think Lemire is doing the same thing in terms of only it's the focus is just grander. So yeah, I really like it so far. I love the art. I'm really embarrassed and I'm forgetting the name of the artist on it right now.
I couldn't help you. Sorry, I think I got the first issue. I haven't read it yet, but
it's really good. It deals a little bit more with Clint's past, and it does a little bit more of the actual superheroing. Like the Fraction run is more. It's not so much superheroing as it is like dealing with regular people problems as a superhero. And then this one actually they're dealing with Hydra and Alien and that sort of stuff. So if you missed that in the Fraction run, then.
So what did you think, MJ, about Hawkeye's new status quo, as it were?
I'm not a big Hawkeye fan, but I understand that they needed to give Jeremy Renner a bigger part, but I didn't like the whole family aspect. I thought, okay, having a farm, that kind of fits. He would have his own little, tucked away place, secretive, but I didn't like the whole family aspect of it. So I was like, yeah, they're there, good for them, but I don't know. And I kept thinking, it's almost like they were teasing you that they were going to kill him, the way that she was like, they were saying goodbye, or however that feeling was. I kept thinking, they're going to kill him off. But, no, they didn't. And then, of course, they tease you again when he's about to get shot, when Quicksilver saves him. So I'm like, all right.
Okay, cool. So let me see. Any last, real quick, the tag at the end, obviously setting up Infinity War.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it
Josh
myself.
Brolin, man.
What?
Josh Brolin. I feel like he was just made to wear that goofy ass face. Like
it fits him too well. It's like
I'm going to do it myself.
Perfect.
But real quick, if you watched the beginning of the episode, I did the hide the zucchini thing. That was a joke that Tony Stark makes to Natasha in the beginning of the final battle at the end. So,
which was funny. That was actually funny.
It was pretty funny. Other than that, yeah. So definitely probably go out and see it. But yeah, I agree. I think in all in all, we tend to all agree that it's not as good as say Winter Soldier or the Avengers original, but it's worthwhile. It's not one of the worst Marvel Universe movies, but it's not one of the best. So sort of an average in the middle. So
it's good. It's good, but it's definitely no Winter Soldier, and it's not It's not the first Avengers either. But it's still a good movie. But I will say the one thing that I was happy to see. I don't know where you saw it. I don't know if they showed the Ant-Man trailer. And before it, it actually made me interested in it, because until I saw that, I was like, I'm not going to see Ant-Man. But now I'm thinking, I might see it. So,
I agree with that too, Allison. What do you take on Ant-Man?
Still not going to see it. I didn't like the trailer.
You didn't like the trailer? See,
no.
I haven't liked anything about it up until that trailer. And I'm like, okay, it made me want to see it more.
I think they had already leaked that trailer
really?
At one point.
Yeah, he might not admit.
I didn't see that one. So.
But no, I have no interest in Ant-Man, period, and there's very little that will get me interested in Ant-Man, and nothing about the trailer made me like.
Why do you think they made it?
I don't know.
Where's it going to tie in with everything that they're doing?
Because they've already done. Originally I thought they were doing an Ant-Man movie because they were going to do Ultron, but then they figured out how to do Ultron without Hank Pym. So it's like, well, why do we need you? Like.
Yeah, I can't figure out where this one stands with the rest of them.
What if instead of an Ant-Man movie, we just have him get stepped on in the first 5 minutes, and it's Natasha? You pan up and it's Natasha, and it's the Black Widow movie.
That would be awesome.
I think the main thing that happened was Edgar Wright is they love Edgar Wright and his stuff. they don't love him enough because they kicked him off. He quit the movie.
Yeah,
But
I was only interested in seeing the movie because of Edgar Wright. That was the one thing that was going to bring me in. And as soon as he was done, I was like, well, screw it.
Done. Yeah.
And I think that was what may be the situation, was that they had this plan for the longest time with Edgar Wright doing it, and then they had the falling out, and like, well, we can't stop now. We've already got pre-production on it started. It'd be kind of a waste to do it. I mean, we've already announced all, so why don't we just go ahead with it, and we'll figure out where he fits in later on. I might have been wrong, but I think during the scene in Avengers: Age of Ultron, when Ultron is going through all the files, you actually get to see a quick snapshot of it. Looked like Ant-Man real quick, and then it just went and disappeared while he's going through all the stuff that when he's destroying Jarvis and getting all the information there. Which reminds me, we got a few more minutes for it because I do want to talk about Preacher. James Spader, Ultron, awesome, right?
Enjoyable, a little bit like quippy, but not quotable. Not like the way Loki was. Like Loki had some like memorable freaking lines, and this actually kind of goes for the whole movie. Quippy, but not quotable. But yeah, like James Spader sounds cool, but sometimes it felt like Ultron was in a different movie. I don't know. And it was a movie I wanted to watch. I would have followed Ultron's antics around, just like him being this weird. Snarky, homicidal, crazy robot. Like,
But yeah, it would have been great to have the Avengers be like the minor cast members that you just focus entirely on what he's doing, then he has his own situations, like, his own problems. Like, man, these robots aren't working hard enough. Let me make them do something better here. Let's do this, or let's punish them this way, and then oh wait, here these guys are trying to stop me, and then they stop.
Listening to the Pinocchio soundtrack on repeat, like.
Have some time with this blue fairy. Hey, turn me into a real boy.
I kind of felt like the end of it, or the big, cataclysmic scene with the town, I was like, that was the best that they could kind of come up with, because as soon as it started happening and they were like, well, what are we going to do? I was like, well, I don't know, just smash it up. Surely between all of y'all can break this into pieces. So that was the first thing I thought. They were like all panicked. I'm like, wait a minute, just, don't let it stay in one piece. Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. But
okay, you should be an Avenger. See, like, you're totally qualified to do this.
Well, it's funny. MJ and I, our last episode, we were talking about the Netflix stuff, and we came up with we want to pitch a She-Hulk / Damage Control show to Netflix where they're in the same building, and She-Hulk's running the legal office out of the same building that Damage Control is in, and just follow Damage Control as they're cleaning up all these messes, and She-Hulk being the lawyer for all this stuff. I think that'd be kind of a fun, interesting series to watch. So it was kind of funny. So I think we're done with Marvel. MJ, you and I can maybe. If we want to get into more detail about it next month, we can, but I think we covered it enough right now. I think we're in good shape. But the whole main reason why I had Alison on, not only because she's a lovely, gorgeous, awesome lady, but she shamed me into reading Preacher.
Shame.
which is a bad...
is the word I want.
Okay, bullied me into it. And to be honest, you know what? I read the first trade. I was like, I don't know. But then I just kept reading more and more. I was like, you know what? This is a freaking awesome series. And as I said, I tried my best to finish it. I got to issue 50. But my local stores don't have the last 2 trades. Allison has offered me the use of her 2 copies, and I may take her up on it. I've got one more place I want to check. I think my local library might have the last 2 trades. I might just take them out of there. And then worst case scenario, I can order it out of Amazon because I want to have a complete set, really. So, because I love this. I love the series. Now, what got me into it, and I think what got our discussion going on, Allison, was I retweeted something on Twitter about the casting of the Preacher pilot on AMC. And I'm still a little iffy on what's going to happen. I know what they're doing. I mean, I'm okay with Seth Rogen doing it because I know he can do more than do jokes about marijuana and smoking up and stuff like that. I've seen him do some other stuff as well. But he's got the right mindset for Preacher because Preacher is actually one of these absolutely, excuse my language, fucking insane stories that is freaking hilarious. Also, if you watch it, I hope I'm not missing the point of it, Allison. I mean, I thought it's fucking hilarious. Do you share that same?
It definitely is a very funny story, and it has to be because it's dealing with like really heavy shit, like the nature of God, and
Good
you
meat.
know stuff like having an abusive family, and true love and how grown-up love works, and like so there's a lot of like heavy shit that happens in that story. So yeah, you have to have a lot of sort of laughing moments. Yeah, it is very funny.
But don't get me wrong, I mean, it's not just a comedy, though. So if you've never read Preacher, there is a lot of stuff going on. I mean, there's a lot of stuff about theology, a lot of stuff about stuff like that, but it's wrapped around this truly insane, absolutely, yeah, truly insane story. And there are some really interesting characters. I mean, you get a truly strong, fully formed, rounded female character in Tulip, who I thought is one of the best female characters out there, who can take care of herself and rightfully gets her revenge on Jesse when he becomes too overprotective of him. I thought that was one of the great scenes when she's getting all seductive on him, and then, hey, let's use handcuffs, and then handcuffs him to the bed, takes off her bra, stuffs it in his mouth, says, "You're going to stay here until I'm ready to come back," and then leave. I thought that was hilarious. And she goes and hangs out with her friend Amy, who I absolutely love. I love Amy. I think she's fantastic. She's a great character. And I'm wearing the glasses because of Cassidy. Where I am with Cassidy right now, I know what he's doing, but I kind of hate him right now.
You're supposed to.
Cassidy's a hard character to love. So.
I think there is definitely a point to that. Like, he's set up as the lovable rake, and I guess spoilers if you haven't read Preacher, and if you haven't, you really should. But he's not. No person is. First impressions are important, but they're often not complete, and that's the deal with Cassidy. And given Cassidy's situation, how old he is, no one's going to have an even track record, and his track record is much darker than he would have people believe. And I think something that the story does a great job with, and you'll see this, Dylan, when you finish it, is that there are consequences. Like, he has to pay up ultimately for an answer for a lot of the things that he's done. And everyone does. Like, Jesse has to answer for it. Like, Tulip kind of deals with stuff as she goes. Like, she's probably the most emotionally mature of the cast. Herr Starr certainly has to deal with more than most people should, and he probably deserves it. But there's like a point towards the end where you're like, man, this dude can't catch a break.
It's just so gruesome, some of it, and it's just some of the panels that are drawn in the comic, especially with Herr Starr, are just like, oh my god, I don't need to see that. I just want to read it and cover up the picture. Like,
it's definitely it's
hard.
It's stupid to call it classic Vertigo because it is classic Vertigo. Like, it is mid-'90s, late '90s Vertigo, which was very pushing the envelope, very gory, lots of sex, lots of kind of shocking imagery. Like,
yes,
you're shocked by the stuff with Star. Maybe my threshold's lower. That first reveal of Grandma in Volume 2, I'm like, oh God, close the Ark of the Covenant, please.
And then when we get into Odin, oh my God, is that guy messed up? and the meat sculptures, like, come on, that's
why I'm wondering, like, does AMC know what they've gotten themselves into?
I feel like they have to, and if you consider what they've gotten away with in The Walking Dead as far as violence and gore, I feel like the one thing they're going to have to be weird about is the sex stuff. And granted, like there's one arc in particular that I feel like they're not going to be able to do correctly. But a lot of the sex stuff you could maybe just do as PG-13, like, it's only really super sexy because boobs are everywhere, but it's actually something I really love about this story is that for all of the violence and the macho-ness and the craziness, it's a love story, and it's all romantic. Like, it's, a lot of the sexual situations are between Jesse and Tulip, and,
right.
They're in love. It's their true love story. So
And that's the
You
one
know?
thing also is that, when you see a lot of these films that are supposed to be, sexy films and stuff like that, and when you have the sex, you're not usually, after you're done, you're usually not covering yourself up and all this stuff. You're just, you're lying full out, completely naked, and they do that in a realistic way in Preacher. That's exactly what real life, and that's one of the things that's interesting is that the storyline is so crazy and so strange and so out there, but in essence, all these characters are realistic. I mean, they're all skewed a little bit. I mean, Jesse and Tulip's relationship is a grown-up adult relationship. Cassidy's mental state being, we don't know exactly what he's, a lot of stuff he's gone through over the 100+ years he's been around, and going through what he did in Ireland, and then getting obsessed with the whiskey and the drinking and stuff like that. And then drinking does affect you in some ways also. Even though you might be a vampire, it's going to affect you in a way. And that's what I absolutely love about Cassidy is that when he has the story where he goes to New Orleans and they've got the gothy guys who want to be the one vampire who thinks he only knows from what he read about vampires in movies and in books and stuff like that.
The
So
whole
he's like,
Anne Rice deal.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, we've got to sleep in coffins, and we've got to only drink blood, and we've got to stay away from garlic and crosses. And he's like, "Are you
Ah,
insane,
you wanker.
Jesus?"
Just so you know, by the way, you aren't there yet, but you do find out everything that Cassidy's been through.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the way here. You get.
That's the next one I got to read. All Hell's a Coming. That's the next one I'm up to because I just finished. The last one I read was Salvation, which I loved. I love Salvation.
Oh man,
so.
that was a masterful volume, and I wonder actually how people took that volume when it came out because it's so different. But like, it takes a very big side track from the main story, and we end up abandoning everything else and having just dealing with Jesse doing his whole like. Literally, like, I'm going to live a Western. I'm going to become sheriff of this town.
So, yeah, but for those who might not know, I mean, all three of us have read Preacher, and there are people probably out there who might not. The basic thing you need to know about Preacher is that Jesse Custer is a guy who grew up in a absolutely horrendous family, and his grandmother was forcing him to become a preacher. And so he becomes a preacher, but then something happens, and his whole congregation gets killed in a giant explosion. And Jesse is the only one who survives. And we learn, yep, that's right. We learn later on that he has been taken over by a being of some kind called Genesis, which is a coupling of the result of a coupling between an angel and a demon.
Can I show the money shot?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is one of my favorite pages of the entire comic, and it's in volume 1. And this is the thing that pops into his head when he's possessed by Genesis. He's like, oh, all right.
And so he has what we call the Word of God. He can use a word and command anyone to do whatever he wants them to do, and they'll have to do it. He's God for all intents and purposes.
Right.
And he ends up just rediscovering the love of his life, who he had to leave when his family came back after he tried to escape from them. They came back and grabbed him and brought him back. And she is harboring, her name's Tulip, obviously, Tulip O'Hare. She is harboring this anger towards him because she thought that they were so in love, and he just up and left her, and now she's been pissed at him. And so we go into that, and then eventually he's able to explain to her the situation, and they fall back in love, and they hook up with Cassidy, who's a 100-year-plus vampire who's been around for a while. He's a hard-drinking guy who loves life, loves having sex, loves eating meat and steaks and hamburgers, and loves drinking more than anything because he's Irish. I mean, yeah, that's an Irish cliche, but it's true. He loves to drink. He loves the whiskey. He loves the beer. And the only thing that we know that he's a vampire is he can't be out in the sun or he'll burn up.
Right.
But other than that, I mean, and he doesn't drink blood. He only drinks blood when he needs to. If someone has pissed him off,
yeah.
Or he needs to recover from an injury, like if he gets, because he's invincible. Like you could shoot him, you can chop his head off, you can chop his arms off, you can chop his legs off, and all he needs is a little bit of blood in his system, and he'll regenerate a lot quicker. So that's the only time that he really drinks the blood. He prefers the whiskey and the beer to that. And eventually
harder
they
things.
yeah, and then eventually they discover that God has abandoned heaven because of this creation of Genesis and is
Right.
now on the earth hiding out. And Jesse says, you know what? That's not cool. We got an answer to that. So it's his job with Tulip and Cassidy to try to find God, and they go through all these different adventures, running into things. Meanwhile, they have this group called the Grail, led by Harry Starr, technically, because Duronic is the High Father, but he's oh my God, Duronic. Duronic. I'm sorry, he's IQUE. And that got me crazy also, because they are the
I love Vatican conspiracies, man. This is all pre Dan Brown too. Like this is like
way before, yes.
Way before the Da Vinci Code. Garth Ennis came up with this hilarious group of
they are
weirdos.
the protectors. Yeah, they are the protector of the holy bloodline, which means that in reality, Jesus Christ was on the cross, but it was all a long con. They were able to get him off the cross, and a lot of people believe that is the case also. They believe that, they got him off the cross, and they came up with a story that he rose after 3 days so that their religion could be spread. But in the end, actually, they took him off the cross. He ends up, having a family, having kids. And so what they do is they keep the holy bloodline together. And this is a horrible thing, because considering what happened, but they have you have to keep the bloodline unaffected by other types of blood and pure. They have the babies, the brothers and sisters, sleep together.
Lannister that business. Or Targaryens. They go Targaryen with it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Very Old Testament like. Well, they keep them together so that brothers and sisters end up having kids, and so gradually, as we all know, if you have a child with your brother or your sister, it's going to be eventually there's a issue with your genetics and things are going to be bad. So their plan is on 2000, because this takes place in the mid 90s. 2000 is when they're going to end the world, and they're going to bring about this Messiah, who is this, for all intents and purposes, mentally insane, birth defect type of
underdeveloped. Underdeveloped.
That's a proper way of saying it. Yes.
I think it's a more all-encompassing way of saying it.
It's just
But then you run into in the journey going from trying to locate God. They run into all these different things, and I know this is your favorite character, and I absolutely love him also, and I think MJ, you probably like him too. The Saint.
Yeah.
Talk about the Saint there, Alison. He's your favorite.
He is my favorite. So there's like multiple antagonists in this story. There's the Grail is chasing after them because ultimately they want Jesse as their Messiah because he's much more photogenic and not this weird inbred cricket man. Like, it's just a better situation for them. Then you have, early in the story, his grandma is trying to get him back to his hometown. And then you also have the Saint of Killers, who has been dispatched from heaven to hunt down Genesis, the entity, and either destroy it or bring it back. Because the whole deal is that God quit when Genesis escaped, or once Genesis was created. So if they can get Genesis back under control, everything will be okay. So the Saint of Killers is this amazing sort of amalgam of every American Western, gunslinger with this amazing deep mythology. Like, they do their first mini-series is Volume 4 of the series Ancient History, and it's like just a mini-series of just the Saint's story. He's basically like a Spectre-type spirit of vengeance. Like, he has these guns that kill on one shot, they can't miss. You will die, and once he's been tasked with a mission, he will not stop killing until the mission is done. And he's got this big, hat and a duster and this dour face, and just like, it's amazing. It's like Clint Eastwood and Lee Marvin had a baby, and it's beautiful. And he's such a powerful character. And then, over the course of the 66, 65, 60?
66, yeah.
How, over the course of all these issues, he becomes so much more than just the guy, chasing them down. Like, oh man, it's so powerful. Like, his resolution is probably my favorite character resolution of any character in the book.
And yeah, that miniseries is just, it's heartbreaking, and the fact that, spoiler alert, he ends up killing the devil. Literally, he shoots the devil and kills him. And when he went to hell froze over. That's how badass he is.
Yeah.
And the devil's like, I don't want this guy here. Get him out of here. And that's when they came up with the idea to make him the Saint of Killers. And he's one of my absolute favorite characters also. And nothing can stop him. They dropped a frigging nuclear bomb on him, and it didn't even affect him. He's like, whatever.
He gets like these amazing lines of dialogue that are straight out of like Unforgiven or something. It's like, there ain't worse than me in all of hell. Go and look. Like, oh, it's so. I was never into westerns until I read this series, and a lot of the time, Garth Ennis, the writer, was very much inspired by American westerns and really like has an obvious, genuine affection for them. And so there's a lot of references to a lot of different movies. So I ended up going to watch them as I was reading the series, and like it got me super into westerns, like True Grit, The Searchers, like The Wild Bunch, Lonesome Dove, like Unforgiven. I had not seen any of these movies, and now like I couldn't stop watching them. So it's.
Particularly because one of the main characters, for the most part, well, not really main, he's more of a background, but is John Wayne.
Yes.
Because John Wayne is
our Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah, so he is. He's Jesse Custer's imaginary friend, as it were, who pops up whenever Jesse's having a moment of, I don't know, doubt or whatever, and he starts giving them the whole, come on, Pilgrim, he's a little bit meaner than that, but he's like getting him to, you got to get back on track. This is what you need to do. Come on, you got to do this. This is everything, but he does it in a very John Wayne-esque manner. And the fact is that it is basically a Western, because the final battle takes place at the Alamo, which is, you can't get much more Western than that. Another major scenario takes place in Monument Valley, which is where many of these Westerns from the 60s and 50s.
The old John Ford movies.
Exactly, were filmed out there. So, it is. And Alison, real quick, just to switch gears, if you want to read, and actually, I haven't read it in a few years, but if you can find this, DC did an excellent 12-part miniseries called The Kents. And basically, it follows Jonathan Kent's relatives in the Old West.
I never even heard of this.
I think Chuck Dixon wrote it. It was a. I remember mostly because I read it in one sitting on. Believe it or not, it's so weird. What I remember, January 1st, 2000. I read it in one sitting because I was up at my aunt's house in New Jersey, and we had a party because it was a change of the into 2000, and my aunt was very, let's have a big party and it's going so cool, and then let's wake up at 5 a.m. and watch the sunrise in the new century. I was like, okay, and we didn't go to bed till like 3 o'clock. So, and then at that point I wasn't asleep, so all my family went back to sleep, and I sat down, I read this, and it is an amazing story. If you can, and maybe I can lend that to you, because I think I got it in my shelf somewhere. It's actually really good. I think Jonah Hex actually makes an appearance in it.
Nice.
But that's really, it's not a superhero thing. It's like Jonathan Kent telling Clark, here's a story of your ancestors, and they were all out west, Kansas. Kansas is a huge out west area. So, and it details a regular type of Western. It's actually a really brilliant story. It's been a while since I read it. It was a 12-issue miniseries, so it's kind of thick, but it's good. It's well worth it. I think it is written by Chuck Dixon, who's really good at doing those types of Western type style things as well. MJ, your favorite character? Who's your favorite character in Preacher?
Jeez, I think I like the Saint of Killers. And I don't know why he bothers me, but I keep coming back to Arseface. I just I have in my mind this image of his voice, how he sounds, and just the look, and there's just something about him. I don't know. It's like it bothers me, but I'm drawn to him at the same time. So.
Well, that's Arseface, isn't it? Like, it's horrifying, but you can't look away.
I can't look away, and I just wish I could, and I'm like, oh. And I keep thinking about his character in the TV series. I'm like, oh, really? Are they...
Because they've cast him, so...
They've even given him a name. He didn't have a name in the in the story, like a first name.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, it was just. But the thing is, though, he's such a nice person.
He is.
He
To have
is.
such a horrible thing happen to him.
Well, he brought that on himself, but it's all the other horrible stuff that keeps happening to him.
Yeah.
It's a mess. So his character resolution is unexpected and
Yes.
strange.
And it's just one of those things I can't stop. Whenever I would read a passage about him, I didn't want to look at him, but I want to read what was going on. I was like, oh God.
I like how in the story you'd have people he's interacting with be like, "Can you turn around because I can't talk to your face."
Or the great scene where where Cassidy and Jesse get him to lose his virginity to the prostitute.
Oh.
It's like you're gonna want to have
Bag
keep the bag
comes
on, and so it's coming off, ah!
And then you just hear like the scream off panel.
And then the next morning he's got a big supposedly got a big smile on his face. He's just like walking like this is so great. This is such a wonderful day.
But I love the character. I absolutely love him as a character, though. So
Yeah. So. I loved the fact that in the trades they have the limited series and the specials which expand upon certain characters. You've got the 4-part Saint of Killers story, which is a heartbreaking story, but is a typical. Boys. Yeah, it is also a typical Western type of story as well. And then you've got Star's story, which I found fascinating. I thought that was great. I thought Star's storyline was very well done, very interesting, leading up to all the stuff that happens to him in the series. And
I'm very interested as to who they're going to have play that role because it really does kind of turn on the strength of Star. Like he's the ultimate big bad kind of, well, except for God, obviously. That's the weird part about this story. It's like, yeah, who's your bad guy? God.
yeah.
It's not the devil because the devil's dead.
A God? No. Like the Christian, the Lord God.
Yeah. Created everything, and
he shows up multiple times in the story. We deal with him.
And it's also telling that they haven't cast Star. And they haven't cast Saint of Killers yet, which means that they're hopefully trying to get it right.
Well, they're just casting the pilot now, so the pilot would hopefully cover maybe just that first issue. And granted, for the first volume, they've cast everyone they need except for the Saint. And I don't know, man. I feel like someone like The Undertaker should just play the Saint because he's got that look. And I think that, actually the cover artist from the books, based his appearance a little bit on him. I would love it.
Yeah, Glenn Fabra, yeah, I guess you can...
Yeah, you can see it.
Like that a little bit.
No, let me find, there was an actual cover that this one.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, okay, yeah.
It's Lee Marvin and The Undertaker and a little bit of something else, but, it's definitely there.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about the pilot real quick, Dominic Cooper, Stark has been cast as Jesse. What's your take on that?
I'm not sure. I like Dominic Cooper. He's a great actor, and I don't question that he has the ability to do it. I just can't see it in my mind because he's not a tall, swaggering Texan. But I'm very open to being surprised. He's not as handsome as I'd like, but neither here nor there. So yeah, we'll see what happens. He's a good actor, and ultimately you want a good actor in the role. I just hope he can do a Southern accent because I believe he's British, and I'm also not sure how I feel about English people being cast as my superheroes all the time, especially as Western protagonists, it seems very un-American to me.
Yeah, you think you could probably find someone maybe from Texas, because Texas is a pretty damn big state.
They already made Rick Grimes an English guy, so
right.
Maybe it's just we're not going to escape.
Yeah.
Lines.
And I think they cast Joseph Gilgan as Cassidy. I think he's got the look. I saw a picture of him on IMDb. Mm-hmm. He looks like he's got the look for Cassidy.
Anyone who can look like the dude from the Pogues, Shane McGowan, if you can just do that crazy. Do we know what time period it's going to be set in? Because that's my big question. This story, I don't think, works in a time with cell phones and the internet.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You're right.
Are they gonna do it set in the 90s, like pre 9/11? Because that's the other thing. It's a pre 9/11 story. Like,
Right.
They're keeping it close to the vest. So I really haven't. All I heard pretty much is just the casting, and they've started doing some preliminary set. They've been doing some exterior shooting and stuff like that. Seth Rogen posted a picture that he's looking at churches right now to use, I guess, for maybe Jesse's thing. And of course, much like with a lot of the other shows, they're adding characters who weren't in the series. Like Elizabeth Perkins is playing a role by the name of Viola.
yeah, like they're decompressing the story a little bit of the actual events at the church, which all happens on like 3 pages in the comic.
And then Lucy Griffiths is playing someone named Emily, who I don't remember either in the book. So, and MJ and I have had this discussion before. I'm okay with casting the best actor for the role. It doesn't matter if the character's supposed to be white, black, or whatever. They've cast Ruth Negga, who is a black female, to be Tulip, which, if she can pull it off,
awesome.
I have no doubt. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I mean, same
There's
thing.
Nothing about the character of Tulip that says she has to be white.
White, exactly. So she just has to be badass. That's all that matters.
Very badass.
And then, as we said before, our face has been cast, so we have to wait and see how they're going to do that. And I think they cast his dad as W. Earl Brown, who has got that very southern, abusive sheriff type look to him. So we'll see. As I said, and you're right. You're right, Alison. It's just a pilot right now. They're not casting for the series. It's just to see if they get the pilot done, and then AMC will take a look at it. And if they think, you know what, we could turn this into series, why don't we do it? Or they might say, you know what, it's too much for us. Because I know you said, Alison, that the sex might be the toughest part. I think the religion actually is probably going to be the hardest aspect of it, because there are so many. Well, no, I mean there are so many people out there who are so hands-on or so uprising about religion if it's taken the wrong way. That
but they're not going to watch this show anyway.
Exactly.
And their objections and protests are going to just create buzz around the show.
Yeah.
Like, just like with the Da Vinci Code and with Angels and Demons, like, every time some idiot protests the Harry Potter book, like,
it just takes off more.
It just makes it more of like ooh, what is this? Because most people aren't like super, like, people understand what's fiction and what's not. So it's like, yes, there are actual angels in this story, and somebody does go and fight the devil, and this guy has a confrontation with God himself. Like, but it's obviously fiction. Like, there's also a vampire in it. Like, it's obviously fiction. So,
I agree with you. I mean, I have no objections to it, and I'm not the best Catholic there is, but I have my belief system, and I disagree with a lot of what the Christian what they force feed you sometimes, but I have no objection. I'm reading it. I absolutely love it. I think it's one of the best stories I've read, and I thank you for bullying me. It's the one case of bullying that actually turned out pretty good.
Well, it's funny to me how this is sort of like. This book was handed to me when I was in college. I was maybe like a sophomore by a guy who was actually a year younger than me, my friend JT. I was looking at it in his dorm room, and it was actually one of the first editions of this volume. And I was like, what's this? And he's like, oh, it's Preacher. You read comics, right? And I'm like, yeah, I read comics. He's like, you need to read this. I'd already read Transmetropolitan. A boyfriend in high school had given that to me. But he was like, yeah, it was written about the same time as Transmet. If you like Transmet, I think you could probably handle this. And so he handed me the first volume, read it in a night, and came back and was like, is there more? And he just gives me a stack of the rest of the trades. And he's like, go with God. Like, have fun. And just, and when I was reading it, I would meet people and be like, oh, how are you just reading that? And I'm like, well, because I'm 19 and it was coming out when I was like 10. Like, sorry, I probably couldn't have handled this when I was an 11-year-old. Probably wouldn't have worked out. But then, like, I find people now, and I assume, I had made this assumption that everyone had already read it, and I keep finding people who haven't, and I'm like, do yourself a favor and read this. Like, if you're enjoying things like Saga, if you're enjoying things like East of West, read it. it will pull you down, and it'll make you angry that all comics aren't as good as this comic.
I second it. I kind of wish I would have collected it during the 90s. The 90s was a weird time for me, comic-wise, because there was the time where after I graduated from college in '95, I was in the process of looking for a job. I lived at home. I didn't have a car, and so I didn't really buy. I actually stepped away from comics for about 5 years. What got me back into comics actually was DC versus Marvel when that came out, like in 1999 or 2000 or something like that. And also No Man's Land, when Batman did No Man's Land, which I thought was a great story also. They got me back into the comics, and then by that time, then I had a full-time job finally, so I was able to start spending more money on it, and so I did. I started going crazy, but for whatever reason, I never really went after Preacher. For what I either didn't like how it looked, or whatever, and I was maybe focused more on the superheroes at that time. I mean, granted, I had read Sandman. I had read. Once again, you're probably gonna yell at me at this. I've read bits and pieces of Transmet. I gotta read all that because I love that's Warren Ellis, right? He did that one, right?
Warren Ellis and Derek Robertson.
Yeah, so I got to get into a little bit of Transmet. But it was never. I was always maybe not obsessed, but I was just I preferred, I guess, the superhero comics, and so I just never really looked too much of the Vertigo books. And in the end,
there wasn't as much of it then. Like now, with especially the way Image Comics has been the last couple of years, like there's plenty of non-superhero fare out there, and there's always been more than people realize, but it wasn't as high profile. Like you've already like Sandman was the thing. Like I think
really the only one that people think about, I think, when they think of non-superhero, from that time frame. So
yeah, that sounds about fair. But yes, I do highly recommend checking out Preacher. You might want to check it out before the if it does go to series, one of those things that you can get in on the ground floor, and like a lot of people who did with Walking Dead, I've been on the ground floor.
DC is, by the way, putting out new editions of these. I think they're up to like volume 6 or 7 now. They might have actually finished, but they've been putting out new ones. So you should be able to order or find, cheapgraphicnovels.com if they don't have it at your local store.
And what's really cool also is that they've also been doing. I have an amalgamation. I've got the regular standalone trade, and then they've done one where they've combined like 2 of them into 2 trades into one book. So I've got one of those, and then the rest of pretty much I got all the regular ones. So I'm hoping, because that was really all the ones that my stores had, where they had the collected editions. I picked up 1 and 2, the first 2 trades when I was still at Diamond, because I had heard from my customers like that, said, have you read Preacher yet? No, I really haven't. And since I had a good discount, I said, I may as well, let me order one. I get a good discount on it. I just never, and then it sat on my shelf. I was going to try to record from my back of my basement, where I have my shelf full of my trades. But my kids, we had my daughter had her first communion last weekend, and so we had family over, and we had to move all their toys down to our basement. So it's filled with dolls and stuff like that. So I didn't have time to move it around. So, but regardless, I have a giant bookshelf just filled with trades and stuff like that. And it just sat there for a while, and then when Allison bullied me into reading, I was like, you know what? I got the first 2 trades. Let me look at it. And as soon as I got them, I was like, I got to get the other ones. And I was able to get, as I said, up to about issue 50. And it's totally worth it. And I'm interested to see how it's gonna end, because as I said, I read about 2.5 of these yesterday, half of this one, and these 2 fully just yesterday. So I just sat there.
I never get over the cover to the Salvation volume. I think they actually submitted that for an Eisner or something, like for best cover. There's this really great, if you can get a hold of it. It's a hardcover book of all of Glenn Fabry's covers.
Oh wow!
With like the original layouts that he did, and then
the very cool.
Product, and little, like, for some of them there's like stories around them, like, and notes from both Glenn and from Garth, God, I just love this stuff. I'm so fascinated by artistic processes, but I'm trying to find that particular cover to see if that's the one. I think they did win for the one of Jesse holding. Oh yeah, this won an Internet Award as Best Comics Cover of '99. Take that, Alex Ross. Behold the might of my sausage.
I love it.
Just this crazy, crazy racist old man waving his sausage at you.
But yeah, let's talk about it real quick. Salvation was fantastic. I love Salvation. I'm not going to spoil that, but who he runs into from his past, that got me in the feels, as it were. I think that was great. And then the fact that we get to
like a genuine but not like crazy surprise, like,
because we never really truly found out what happened to them in the early episodes. We assumed we knew what happened to them, but it wasn't the case. And then the fact that they were still pretty much the same way we had remembered them from the earlier trades was great. And as you said, it was a complete change from the storyline. At that time, Jesse was thought to be dead, and Tulip went on a spiral of drug abuse and alcoholism, and Cassidy, who has been declaring his love for her, was trying to hold off due to his love for Jesse, but he just couldn't, and he was in love with Tulip, and then he took advantage of it when he probably shouldn't have. And so when Jesse comes back, he's like, oh, they're going to be surprised to see me, and then sees them making out, he's like, oh, hell. So then he lost his way, and so he goes to Salvation, and he gets refocused as becoming the new sheriff of the town, taking on and that's basically what it is. It becomes, as you said, a modern-day Western where this young gun, who's not from the area, man with no name, walks into town and starts cleaning it up for the better because it's been oppressed.
With his trusty deputy, like...
Oh, Cindy's fantastic. Oh, my God.
I adore their run-ins with the Klan because just the incisive way that Ennis just, like, takes them apart as far as, like, describing how ridiculous they are and just how ludicrous they are, like, in their very existence. Like, so amazing. So rewarding. And, like, having grown up in the South, like, it's... When you grow up in the South, you have to confront it in your history all the time. Like, that it's shitty. It's really shitty. And so it's really rewarding to be like, look at this dude just punch these idiot, bigot assholes right in the face. Like, just so cathartic.
And then what I loved also is that when and Ennis makes a statement also, is like, you know what? If I drop a Klan member in the middle of a black town, everyone's going to think, oh, they're going to lynch him, they're going to kill him. No, what they're going to do is we're going to strip you naked. You're going to walk back to Houston naked. We're not going to beat the shit out of you. You're going to be naked and you're going to walk, Peckerwood. Yeah, that's right, Peckerwood. I thought that was great because they're like, because everyone makes the assumption, oh, okay, they're going to beat the hell out of him, they're going to kill him because it's all the pent-up racial stuff. No, they said, guess what? We're going to strip you naked. You're going to walk back to Houston in your Emperor's new clothes, as it were, and just walk down the street and remember, we fucked you up pretty good, but we didn't hurt you.
We didn't hurt you.
So yeah, and that was great. And then was it the dog? Oh, the dog. What's his name again?
Skeeter.
Skeeter, yeah, Skeeter's the dog.
Well, I guess you better be Skeeter.
Especially when Jesse has his peyote-infused vision of how he survived the nuclear explosion, and he ends up saving him from being drowned. It's hilarious. It's great.
That was almost like a classical Homeric Odyssey kind of deal, where it's like the trip to the underworld that's usually like essentially like a drugged out, like, whoa, like. And he has a few of those. Like, there's the stuff that happens whenever he's with God, and then there's the stuff that happens when he and the big snake end up having a little bit of a bonding session. I
love how the big snake ate the one vampire wannabe.
Yeah.
Snakes do that?
Even set pieces in this story, like, God, I can't even pick a favorite. I'm gonna try and read. I collected all the single issues, which was pretty huge for me, and I want to read them all just issue by issue and see what the story's like that way, because I've only ever binged it in trade. Like, I've never actually taken it as independent pieces.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I've only read
MJ,
it in
did
trade.
you read it when it was... Okay, so you weren't reading it
Yeah.
when it was coming out, you read it later?
Yeah. No, I've only read it in trade as well. So.
Are you a Westerns guy, or was it just like a bunch of people were like, you should read this?
No, it was just more like a bunch of people were like, you should read it. You know, it was one of those ones that was, advertised in my local comic book shop, and they're like, oh, give it a try. So once you read the first one, I'm like, all right, I got to see what happens next, and then I was on it. So, but I think that you're right. I think that the time setting is going to be very important, how they do that too. So I didn't even think about how they were going to do that, because you're right. It can't really be modern. It's got to be, but it's not old Western. So I don't know. It is going to be weird how they're going to do that.
It's more of like they're on the run a lot, and in a time with shit tons of smartphones and
It's not
FBI watch lists, it's like there's no way, especially the Monument Valley confrontation can happen the way that it happens in just the way politics and war and everything else is right now.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? The feel of the movie, God, what was that one by the brothers? No Country for Old Men.
Yes.
Like it should kind of be set in that time. The way that they did that, that's how it should be done. That's kind of...
I mean, they have done period pieces before. I mean, they've got Turn, which takes place in the colonial times. They've got Stop and Halt Fire, which is that 80s computer era thing. So there's a precedence that maybe they can set, and hopefully Seth Rogen and Evan realize that you can't, as you guys say, set it in modern day. You've got to set it in the 90s. It's a distinctly 90s story. It definitely is, and you just got to do it that way.
They're gonna have to really earn the suspension of disbelief on a lot of stuff. Otherwise, it's like you should have been arrested within like the first 10 days of the story.
No way.
They've been caught. You're done.
You're done. The story's over. You cannot get away with that. So.
And that's the other thing I liked about it also, is because in the end, the Word of God could have been used as a simple device. Oh, I'm in a bad situation. I'm going to use it, and it'll all be good. He really doesn't use it all that much, up to where I've read it. He uses it occasionally, but not as much as he possibly could have. He decides more to use his own fists, his own way of figuring things out without having to rely on this Word of God. And maybe that has something to do with the fact that maybe he does not like having this power either.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think another part of it is, and I don't know if you guys have ever read Garth Ennis's mainstream DC book Hitman that he did with John McCrae, which was set in the DC continuity. Tommy Monahan, the main character in that, had a similar kind of weird one-off power. And Ennis would say about that, he's like, sometimes I just forgot that he had it. So I end up like writing these stories, and people are like, well, why didn't he just use his power? And it's like, well, I forgot, and I was having fun writing this story. And so I wonder how much of it with Jesse Custer is either Garth or Jesse, genuinely as a character, forgetting kind of that it's there and falling back on his own sort of instinctive human responses.
It might be a little bit of both, because they make a big deal about Jody training him on being a badass fighter, and his belief system that, even though he despises being a preacher because he was forced into it, he still believes in what's fair and right. And that makes a big appearance in Salvation, because his whole point is these assholes have been getting away with shit for years, and it's not right what they're doing. So we've got to,
that great line from his dad of, you got to be one of the good guys, son, because there's just way too many of the bad. Like, it's like that very kind of deep moral DNA. I want to see, because it's on AMC, I hope AMC has maintained a really good relationship with Michael Rooker, and I want to see Michael Rooker as Jody.
Oh, yes.
And I want to see Jackie Earle Haley, who played Rorschach in the Watchmen movie. I want to see him as DC.
I could see that. I could totally see that. That's awesome. That's a great
casting.
You should be casting stuff there.
Seth Rogen, give me a call.
And the one thing, two of my favorite stories were one-offs. They were when Jesse met up with Space. and learns more about his dad's Vietnam days, and that's always fascinating me because I have a BA in history from Albright College, so I'm always interested in history and historical stuff, and I love, and I've never really been a big fan of like the Vietnam movies that came out like in the 80s and 90s. I mean, I still watch the Platoons, the Full Metal Jackets, the Casualties of War type. I've watched them, but they're the type of movies that, you know what, I don't want to watch them again. It's one of those like, okay, I saw it, I'm done, because it was such a horrible time. But then you get these two one-offs, and I don't know if there's maybe another one in the last two issues, I'm not sure, but I know the one where he first meets them and they learn about the fuck communism lighters, and then the second one, which I just finished, was it was issue 50 basically, was the Medal of Honor story, and both of those was also a really good break from the story where we get a little bit more background on Jesse's dad to see what sort of tempted him into telling Jesse what's right from wrong, and trying to get him to convince him, when he was a kid, being a dad, this is why you have to be good, and you find out a bit more about it in his Vietnam War experiences. And I think Space is such a great character, and it was a great. I mean, I think it might be because it was late, but I got a little teary-eyed at the one about the Medal of Honor when Space is there by himself. He's like, why aren't any of you fuckers right anymore? It's just sort of a nice little bit at the end, and so I like those as well. And I'm hopefully maybe they can do something like that on the AMC series if it goes to series, like a little bit of a break from the insane intensity. You need a little break from after a big storyline. You need to come back down to earth for a little bit. Let's just have this little one-off where we learn a little bit more about Jesse's dad or his history, or even more about that person who we meet up in Salvation about their story as well. So. And how they survive. So it's
well, you know that like Garth Ennis's whole thing is war stories. Like that's what he's that's what he loves writing. It's what he's kind of known for a lot in comics, and I think it was really cool that he brought that in here because Jesse's so disconnected from his past in a lot of ways. Like he basically loses both of his parents before he's like 10 years old, and like has to deal with a very slanted view of the past, and has a child's memories of what his parents were like. And so these like the Vietnam story about his dad is like, oh, I want to like as an adult hear a grown-up story about who the significant figure in my life was. So it's poignant, and you're right, like I just flipped to the page and like it's a lot of feelings. A lot of feelings, and it's dusty in here.
It's an overcast day in D.C. He's standing right by the names of all the, all the people who were killed in the Vietnam War. He's just standing there, and he's just like, why ain't any fuckers writing to me anymore?
Beautiful shots in the mail. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so fantastic. So, anything else about Preacher, you guys? Any last thoughts?
I just hope it goes to series.
Yeah.
And I'm still, I don't know, Seth Rogen, I like him, I trust him to bring it on, but I just don't want him to make it something weird and in his weird comic vein, because that I would flip my TV over if that happened.
Yeah. I hope that it seems like he's a genuine fan of the story, like, so it's like I hope that, with that, it's like, that you always hope that someone who's a fan of the source material does justice to it. I mean, that's why people were excited about, going back to Avengers, Joss Whedon being involved with Avengers is because Joss Whedon was a huge comic book nerd. And so people were like, okay, like you get the source material, you clearly have a love and affection for it. You hope that people use their better judgment and don't let their own stuff get in the way. But yeah, I think I agree with you that if it's become some kind of like madcap, weird, absurd comedy, that I wouldn't like that for a tone. But I don't think anyone would adapt Preacher that way, because it's supposed to, like, even from that first cover, like it's supposed to be kind of spooky a little bit. Like that's an intense cover of this like messed up looking dude over a burning church. Like it's supposed to give you kind of a feeling of hesitance and possible dread.
It's like the Return of the Stand, this type of thing.
Yeah.
and that's totally not what it is. It's a brilliant series, and I want to thank you, Allison, for getting me in on that. And and that's the one thing I was talking to my wife earlier. She was asking me a little bit about it. And I was like, I think the best stories, the ones that are considered classics in the comic world, are the ones that have the finite stories. Your Why the Last Mans, your Transmets, your Sandmans, your Preachers. They've all got a specific endpoint, fables for that matter. You got a specific endpoint that you're going to be reaching for, and you can hit all your beats you want to, and you'll be done and you'll be satisfied. Ex Machina is another really good one too. So there is one more thing before we cut this off. Allison, have you ever read? And I think I asked you this before, MJ, and I don't remember, but you can answer this too. There was a series, miniseries, about 6-issue miniseries that Bill Willingham wrote called Proposition Player. Have you ever heard of that one?
Mm-mm.
It's got a similar feel to Preacher. It's only 6 issues long though, but the basic premise behind that is it takes place in Vegas, and this always fascinates me because I think this would make a really good movie. It's about a proposition player who is a guy in Vegas that its only job is to build up people betting more on poker and stuff like that. He's a guy that he's hired by the casino to help raise the antes on things. And they pay him a stipend, and if he wins, he keeps his winnings and stuff like that. So he's kind of a dick, not a nice guy, kind of a jerky layabout type of thing. And he and his buddies are hanging around after one day. He's hanging out with the dealers and stuff like that, and they start talking about the soul and stuff like that. And this guy is a total dick. He's like, yeah, you know what? I don't believe in whole things about souls and stuff like that. He's like, look, I'll tell you, I'm going to make a point here. How about you sell me your soul for $1? I'll give you $1 or $10. I'll give you $10 for I'll give you $100 for your soul. And the people are like, oh yeah, we believe you, man. So they say, yeah, my soul belongs to whoever this guy, I forget what his name is. And they hand to him, he gives him the $100. I got $100. This guy's got my soul. He's trying to make a point. He's like, souls don't exist. In this, they do though. Eventually, what happens though is that somehow in the magical thing, he has become a soul collector, and now a lot more people are finding this very interesting, and eventually heaven and hell say, okay, this guy's taking our souls from us, and then they say we gotta make a statement. So they end up killing these friends of his, and this guy learns that, wait a second, I do own their souls for real. And so he's got to figure out what to do with it. So now hell and heaven are coming in, and they're trying to sell him on, you need to give us the souls for hell, or you need to give us the souls to heaven. And they try to sell him on it and stuff like that. And so it's a really wild, interesting story that's a really effed up take on religion, and it's one of these more fascinating things, and heaven is not the heaven you think of. It's very similar to the heaven in Preacher, where everyone assumes heaven is this great, glorious, wonderful place. Well, no, not really. And also everybody believes that hell is this terrible, awful place. Well, no, not really. It's a little bit of a shade of gray thing. So that's one I think you might actually enjoy, both of you guys. It's called Proposition Player. It's very quick, six issues, but it's fascinating, and it's just worth it for the world creator monkey. That's the only thing you need to know, is a monkey who ends up creating the world that this guy creates when he makes his own religion. It's really funny. So that's Proposition Player for you. All right, so I want to thank Allison for hanging out with us.
Thank you, Allison.
It was an absolute pleasure. Comicosity Hangout is Mondays at 9 o'clock. Do you know who you got on tomorrow?
Give me 5 seconds. I was actually bringing that up. We've been on a stretch of quite a few guests, so I don't know who we have this week. Let's see. Guest list. Let's see. Sorry, I didn't realize Google Drive updated. Let's see. What is tomorrow's date?
It's the 4th. May the 4th be with you.
All right, then tomorrow we have Steve Orlando, who is a writer who has a new book coming out from DC after Convergence wraps up. He's going to be doing the Midnighter book, so we're very, very excited. Steve's been on before. he's great. He's fantastic. He's so funny, and I'm also super excited about a Midnighter book. So yeah.
Yeah, I follow him on Twitter. He's a really cool guy. And yeah, it's Midnighter. I think he's going to do a good job with Midnighter, I think, and because that's a very interesting character as well. So everybody, watch. Steve Orlando's going to be on the Comicosity Hangout Monday, 9:00 ish. You can see Allison. Hopefully, we didn't take your voice away from you, so you actually will be able to be on the show.
I'll just have like cue cards that I'll hold up with like questions on them.
So now let's see. I've had you and I've had Jessica. I need to get Karen on now, so I got to figure out a way to get Karen on. I think I might. I know she's a big Harry Potter fan. Maybe I'll do a Harry Potter show, get her on there. So,
Harry Potter.
because I'm a big Harry Potter fan. We're getting this close. This summer, we're probably going to get my daughter, who's 8 years old right now, to start reading the first one. I think so.
I think like probably 8 years old, you could handle 1 and 2 easily. Yeah.
She's just like her mother.
That's the perfect age.
Yeah, she's just like her mother. She's a reader. I mean, she reads these fairy books that are very thin. They're the Rainbow Fairies. They're about 60 pages long. She knocks out like 13 in a week. It's like, wow.
Good for her.
And she remembers them too, because I ask questions like, what happened here? What happened here? And then it's like, yeah, it's not like I'm just reading it and I don't remember. No, she remembers it. So, Allison, 9:00 Mondays, Comicosity Hangout. I got to have you back on sometime, but I know you got a busy schedule. Maybe in the fall, I'll get you back on, and we'll hang out and do something cool. Maybe by then I'll read the last 2 trades of Preacher, and we can talk about that. And maybe by then we'll also know about the Preacher TV show. Maybe talk about
hopefully.
that too. And of course, MJ, my buddy, my co-host. I will see you again next month. Let's see, next month is June. Right. Best month of the year, by the way, because it's my birthday month. Thank you very much.
Sneak that right in.
So we'll figure out what we'll do then. I don't have anything off the top of my head, but those things happen. Things will pop up. We'll do our regular stuff. Maybe we'll get Myrtlelotta back on, talk about convention stuff again. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. So you'll see MJ and I will be back talking comics first Sunday in June. Allison, as I said, Monday nights, Comicosity Hangout. Totally check that out. My show next week is actually going to be on Saturday because next Sunday is Mother's Day. And my co-host Jerry Fletcher is a mother, so she's got plans for Mother's Day, and I've got plans for Mother's Day with my wife and the kids and my mom and my mother-in-law and stuff like that. So my show is going to be on Saturday, the 9th. It's our list show. We're going to be doing, conveniently enough, top 10 mothers in pulp in pop culture. So from movies, TV, and books, we'll be talking about the top 10.
Lannister.
That's a very good possibility.
That is certainly a suggestion I can make.
Now, do you watch Game of Thrones, MJ?
I do. I do. It's not my thing. I watch it to make fun of it, really.
Allison is a huge fan, so you better watch out.
Yeah. I can't keep them all straight. I'm like, I don't know who all these people are. There's too many of them, and it's like,
That's how I started out with it, because my husband's a huge fantasy guy and loved the books and stuff, and then I didn't pay attention to the first 2 seasons. Then I watched the 3rd season, and I finally got. I don't know what clicked, but something was like, oh, I actually care.
I'm still waiting for that.
I have to learn all these damn names. Shit.
I'm still waiting for that click, because I watch it and I'm like, I don't even remember that happening from last week. So.
Just real quick, you mentioned Scott. Does he like Preacher?
Actually, he was not crazy about. I met Scott in college. We had just started dating when I started reading the book, and he does not like Westerns at all, so he refused to read it for a really long time. He's like, Westerns are so boring, they're so dumb, da 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 da. And, God, it must have taken me 2-3 years to convince him to finally read it. And he read it, and he was like, okay, that was really good. And he's since read it, 2-3 times. And so, which made me really happy that someone who doesn't like Westerns could still, because I know not everybody does, could still read this book and enjoy it. And I think he liked kind of the more fantastical elements, like the vampires and the kind of the satirical take on religion. But he definitely doesn't like it as much as I do, but I did talk him into getting a Preacher tattoo. We have matching Preacher tats on until the end of the world.
Until the end of the world.
Yeah. Which, for those who don't know, that's the phrase that Jesse uses the tulip every time just to profess his love for her. Yeah.
The title of Volume 2.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but so yeah, for not liking Preacher as much as me, he now has words from it permanently on his skin. So I hope he's not just lying to make me happy.
He took that pretty far.
Yeah, not Scott. No. No, we love Scott. He's great. All right. So everybody, thank you for joining me. I will see you. I'll see you Saturday. Jerry and I will be doing top 10 mothers in pop culture, so that'll be fun. And then week after that will be my random rant episode where I just talk about whatever the hell I feel like. Then I do my international show the end of the month with Bronwyn. And then what's really cool is May we have a fifth Sunday, and due to popular demand, I'm gonna bring back Mandy, who we did our beer show. She's a beer connoisseur. We did a beer show not too long ago. We're going to do summer beer show end of the month, Memorial Day weekend. So, bam, should be fun. Cool. All right, y'all. Y'all. Y'all, you'll read some preacher. Jesus. Hallelujah. Dylan knows it's over. See you later.
Bye, Dylan.
Bye.